So we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. My name is Gustavo Balderas. I'm the superintendent of schools here in the Edmond School District. And I really want to thank you for taking time tonight to really be present and hear from our staff regarding childcare. And tonight's forum will be recorded and then posted online to view later for folks. So I want to make sure people understand that if you miss something, or again, that we will be recording and posting to our website. And also, uh, just an FYI, just if you want to submit for free or reduced price meals and find out if your student qualifies, please go to our website or click onto that link as well. That helps us and helps our kids. Again, these past few months, before we also do that, we also, let's say this in Spanish, tienen la opción de escuchar esta manera en español, haciendo clic en el botón en la parte inferior de la pantalla, está abajo. So, es un botón, hace clic para escuchar en español. I want to, again, these past few months have been some of the most trying in my 31 years in education. The current situation does not allow us to open schools next month as we would like. Our staff have been working very hard since the spring and trying to maybe to ensure that we create a better teaching and learning environment for our kids and families. All of us want our kids back in school. All of us want our kids back in school as quickly as possible. And when it's safe to do so. I know our staff are really yearning to come back to our brick and mortar campuses. But again, we will do so when it is safe to do so for both students and faculty. Tonight, you'll hear from Dr. Helen Young and other staff. And Dr. Young is our new assistant superintendent that oversees our elementary schools. And she's going to take it over here in a little bit. But to hear about our childcare efforts and also answer some questions from our community. Again, thank you for being here tonight. And thank you for your patience. I look forward to seeing you in our schools here sometime this year. So thank you again. And a reminder that tonight's forum will be recorded and posted online to view later. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Young.
Thank you, Dr. Balderas. I just want to thank all the families and students who are watching tonight. And I know that we have a lot of questions that we need to filter through. So I just want to give you a quick history about how we came to the decisions that we did through an amazing district advisory group comprised of Darcy Becker, who's the manager of early learning programs, and she's going to wave to you so you know who she is. And Debbie Erickson, who's not here tonight, but she's the IT infrastructure supervisor who's getting our buildings ready and Wi-Fi ready for our students to show up with their Chromebooks during childcare. And Haley Etnier, Director of Special Education, and Matt Finch, Director of Facilities Operation, and Sally Guzman, Family and Community Engagement Coordinator, and Mara Mirano Bianco, Health Services Program Manager, and she'll be joining us soon. So thank you for all of you joining us tonight, and I want to also thank our team. They spent weeks collaborating with our childcare providers to ensure that we're partnering to serve you well. So next slide, please. So the desired outcomes for today, we're just going to go over two very simple things. I don't want to complicate too many things because we also have another childcare community forum coming up on August 31st on 6 to 7 p.m. But we're just going to try to get through reviewing locations and introducing the pricing. I know a lot of families wanted to know about the pricing of the different providers. And the bulk of the time will be spent on answering your questions. Next slide. So I'm going to go over the 4 locations that we did communicate to you, but I'm just going to review. Cedar Valley Elementary will be serviced by Right at School, Terrace Park Elementary, Kids Crew, Mount Lake Terrace Parks and Rec, Chase Lake Elementary, YMCA, and Martha Lake Elementary will be serviced by the Boys and Girls Club, the Alderwood branch. And now we're going to have Sally Guzman kind of talk to you about where these locations are and how we came to make these decisions around these specific 4 schools. Sally?
Hi, thank you, everybody. So as you can see on this map, we have strategically placed each childcare location to be in a position that is throughout the district and not in one area too much. So the first one you see on the map is number 12, which is the circle square over on the what would be the northeast side of our quadrant. And then you have site 3, which is Cedar Valley Elementary, which is technically on the northwest section of our quadrant. The other one is now a little bit further down is Chase Lake Community School, which is in our southwest quadrant. And lastly, we have Terrace Park, which is in our southeast quadrant. These were selected for various reasons, one of which is community transit location. So how hard or how difficult it is to find it, and how easy and accessible it is through bus transportation and other forms of public transportation. So we wanted to make sure that the options were not too hard for families to navigate. And we're also located in our Title I schools. For those who don't know what Title I means, it means that these schools' demographics show that over 40% of their families qualify for free or reduced meals through the federal program, and therefore would indicate a higher need for child services. And you'll learn more about the costs and how that plays into part, as well as being centrally located for these quadrants so that they're easier to get to for most families in the quadrant. We realize that we have a very large district and it would be hard to meet everything with just 4 locations. But that was some of the intentionality and thought that went into selecting locations.
Thank you, Sally. Next slide, please. So now we're going to have Darcy Becker go over the pricing, side-by-side pricing overview for each of our 4 providers.
Thank you, Helen. We are partnering with 4 community providers within our school buildings. There are literally hundreds of providers in the community, but these 4 community organizations will be providing childcare within our school buildings. What we wanted to do in providing you a pricing overview chart is be able to compare one next to the other so you could see what is the pricing of different providers, what are their hours of operation, what kinds of weekly rates do they have, do they take DSHS childcare pay. And so this chart is set up in that way. Each provider also has a system for reviewing individual family needs based on both income, for that family's income, and the size of the family. So this is just their standard rates. We encourage you to check into each individual provider that you're interested in and find out more about discounts that they might be able to offer you or your family based upon both the size of your family and the income of your family. You'll notice that Boys and Girls Club, they have a 2-3 day rate and a 4-5 day rate, weekly rate. Right at School has a kind of a flexible model where they have different charges for different periods of the day, so you can kind of build your own schedule. And then the YMCA, they have rates for facility members, Y facility members, and non-members. And Mount Lake Terrace Kids Crew has, for residents of Mount Lake Terrace, the city of Mount Lake Terrace, one rate fee structure, and for non-residents, a separate fee structure. So just kind of pointing that out. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms.
One thing that I do want to add is I do want our families to understand that classroom spaces are not accessible by our childcare providers. because teachers may have the opportunity to return to their classrooms to record and whatnot. That has to do with negotiations. So I won't get into that tonight, but we want our teachers to be able to access their own classrooms when they need to. So our childcare providers will be using the common shared spaces, not classrooms. Go ahead, Darcy.
I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the fact that this meeting and these public forums are taking place on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish people. We acknowledge that they have retained the rights to the land, and that we respectfully acknowledge them in this community. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about some questions. So I see that there are a variety of questions popping up. Here's one. Okay. So here's one question. Why did you leave the Boys and Girls Club of Edmonds branch off? And there's nothing for the Edmonds area over 6th grade. So Helen, do you want to, Dr. Young, do you want to talk about that a little bit, about the way we chose partners or the way we worked with partners?
So one of the things that we did, we looked at prior relationships and we also asked for interest. So the 4 providers wanted to be involved. We first started the conversation on whether we can provide childcare when it's hybrid, because before we were fully remote, we were all planning for hybrid. Every district in our state was planning for hybrid. So in that scenario, we were trying to figure out if it's hybrid and kids are in the building 2 days a week on any given day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, we can't use the spaces in the buildings. What can we do? How can we help our providers support our families well? And so one of the things that we did was we asked for interest, and some providers said, we're not interested at this time. We cannot be involved in hybrid, and we're doing fine with what we have. And so these 4 providers wanted to join the efforts of supporting our families in this manner. So that's one thing. Another question I think I've heard through the pipeline is, how about kids older than 6th grade? Why do we not have childcare for a 7th grader or an 8th grader? And that all depends on not Edmonds School District, but the providers and the guidelines and regulations that they have to go through the state to get licensing to be able to support students and families in that manner. And we don't really engage in that as a school district. So those questions we could ask on the 31st when the childcare providers will be with us to directly answer those kinds of questions as to why they don't do preschool childcare in some of our sites and whatnot.
Okay, here's another question. Will the various providers be trained by the district or coordinate with the district on how to support our students in their remote learning, particularly for younger or more impacted students who will need help managing their Chromebooks, getting into class Zooms, and doing asynchronous assignments?
So that's a very good question. And I know many, many families want to know this. They want to be reassured that when they drop off their child at a childcare center or a provider, that homework will be done, that they'll log into the Zoom correctly, and that they won't miss a beat. And we are partnering with our childcare providers to make sure that our buildings are Wi-Fi ready for multiple access points to happen, because multiple kids will show up with their Chromebooks. But in terms of providing direct professional development or training on how to teach, that's not going to happen because our childcare providers are not hiring certificated teachers as staff. But what they can do is facilitate the learning, which is different, facilitating and supporting and helping rather than teaching the content. So yes, they will understand the learning management systems because we will share videos and guides um, and steps on how to manage Seesaw or Canvas, for example. So they'll have an understanding of how to log in and how to log out and how to post assignments and things like that. In terms of the content though, they're not certificated teachers. So expectation is not that they teach it, but they help support it with writing, with reading and math and etc. So we are partnering, especially with our special education department. Haley, a director of special education, has offered to provide any kind of support she can with any willing childcare provider who wants to learn about how do you de-escalate a child who misses their parents and wants to go home and things like that. How do we take care of children when they come with an educational plan, like an IEP? And so we have Haley in our advisory group to lend a helping hand to teach our childcare providers and their staff about certain things that they can do to help students, but the expectation wouldn't be that they teach it or that they finesse it so well because they just don't have the training. As you know, many of our childcare providers have staff that go through their childcare sites and they get moved to another facility or they leave altogether and they have to hire somebody new. So there's a revolving door of staff in our childcare providers, and that's what they have shared with me. And so for us to be able to teach like a series of learnings around that, that's not going to happen. And I don't want to overpromise something that we're not planning to do. Haley, would you like to add anything else about your partnership and how you're planning to support?
Yeah, you did a great job and really articulated that very well. We will be partnering with our childcare providers and families for students with disabilities. There's a question that has just popped up as well in the Q&A. Provided that students are enrolled in the childcare programs, we will be partnering to facilitate the same support as our childcare providers are facilitating for their academic learning. So when if a family reaches out or a childcare provider reaches out, provided that consents have been exchanged and everybody's comfortable, we will help to facilitate support so that our students can be safe and receive childcare.
So the next question is about right at school providing a program at Cedar Valley and which students are eligible for attending which provider's location. So I'll go ahead and answer that. All of our providers are open to district students. So if your home school is close to Chase Lake and you would like to attend the Y program at Chase Lake, that's great. Or if your work location is closer to, say, the Boys and Girls Club services up at Martha Lake, you are totally welcome to apply through the Boys and Girls Club or to seek services from the Boys and Girls Club. So none of the locations are specific to only certain students or students within a certain attendance zone. Here's a question. Do you know how many students will be permitted per grade? So this is a great question for our providers next week, but we do not have a limit or an amount of students per grade that can be permitted at each location. We're going to be responding to the community's needs and making sure that we are providing as many spaces available as we possibly can. That might mean that we need to look at additional spaces to open up for our providers to be able to expand. And they are also open to that idea of expanding services. similar question is about, will the providers still be providing services at their locations? For instance, Boys and Girls Club of Alderwood, they have a club location, and yes, the club location will also be serving students. So the club location and Martha Lake will be serving students, as well as the Y will have services available in different locations where they serve. So a question, will the services be different in different locations? Each provider has their own, they have their own internal curricula and their internal programs that they offer that are specific to them. They will still be offering those, but they will all support the remote learning of schedules and remote learning of the students in their care. So we have been working with them for, for a while now, and really making sure that we all have the same goal, which is that if children are in childcare during the day and their instruction is ongoing, that the goal is not for parents to pick their child up at 5 o'clock and then to go home and have to do school. So we wanted to make sure that children were able to access their instruction during the day if they were in childcare. There's some questions around health, like what will the student to teacher ratio be, and will masks be required for students and staff? Mara, are you able to answer that question?
Hello, everyone. My name is Mara Marano Bianco. I'm the Student Health Services Program Manager. Do you mind repeating that, Darcy? Because it was a little broken up on my end as I am on my phone.
The question was, what will the student to teacher ratio be, and will masks be required for staff and students?
So the Department of Early Learning has
Uh-oh. Did we lose Mara? I think we might have lost Mara. I thought it was my sound that went out, so I was trying to fix my own sound. I'm so sorry. Another question. Next. Oh, there's Mara.
Yeah, Mara's back.
Yes, I'm sorry. I keep losing connection. My apologies. The student ratio differs for early childhood childcare centers and childcare centers, so they're different from schools. So that's a great question for each of the providers next week.
Next question. Some of the childcare locations are in older buildings with insufficient Wi-Fi and internet access. Are there any plans to upgrade these facilities for remote learning?
I can take that, or Matt. Matt, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, let's have Matt speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey community. Yeah, happy to do so. Yes, the short answer is yes. It would be better answered by Debbie, who wasn't able to join from our tech department. But in speaking with her earlier today, yes, there's going to be sufficient Wi-Fi. Our tech department has been quite proactive in going out to all these facilities, and even some where we may potentially expand to in the future if that's a need, and being very proactive in making sure that we have sufficient internet coverage.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matt. We have several questions about how to enroll your child in different providers in their programs. So if you are interested, there was some links that were sent out last week, but I think we also have links available on our website to each provider's registration information. And so you would enroll directly with the provider. The other The other question that's kind of related to that is around how each organization creates their, if they have a weekly rate, do they have also a daily rate? Great questions. They are, each partner has their own business model. They have their own method for determining rates. And so that's a really great question to reach out through their website and ask them some of those questions. If you need only 1 day a week care, but you only see a weekly rate posted, please know that our childcare providers are very eager to work with each individual family and to meet the needs of your of their families. Sally, do you want to talk a little bit about pricing?
Yes, I see a few questions on the chat about pricing, and so I think it's important to go a little bit over. So most of the agencies will use the National HUD guidelines for starting place for financial assistance, which is household income based on federal poverty levels. So I'm going to give an example. It's a little bit hard. They do have some really good charts on their website as well, which I'm going to be using the YWCA's a little bit to see if that helps. So for a family of 2 for the YMCA who makes $45,000 a year, and that would be 2 people, meaning maybe one, most likely one adult and 1 child, because they need childcare, that would be a 10% discount on price versus a family of 7 or even a family of 6. So maybe 2 adults and 4 kids, or 1 adult and 5 kids. For that same amount of money made per month, the discount would be 50%. So again, the scales that are being used are taking into account both the size of the family and the income, using the same federal guidelines that we use for families applying for free and reduced lunch. There's more information on their website, but this would be how you would know if there was a discount that you would receive based on the number of people in your household versus income.
Let me see. I'm reading through questions. Why isn't Right at School at all the locations like last year? So let me answer that. Right at School provided before and after school care at all of our elementary schools last year. Through the summer and through the closure beginning in March, they provided services only at Linwood Elementary. So once we moved to a distance learning model, Right at School no longer provided care at each individual site. So the plan is that when we transition to a hybrid model, that Right at School would once again, because students would be in the buildings each day, that they would again provide before and after school care at that time. But for now, based upon the information that we have right now about the need for childcare, we're starting with 1 location for each provider will be staffing. Okay. Another question. Here's a question about lunches. So for kids in childcare, is hot lunch going to be available and at what cost? So Dr. Young, can you talk a little bit about food service?
Yes, thank you. So for students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, there will be free and reduced lunch available at the childcare sites. And we're working closely with our nutritional services to make sure that happens. And so if your child is spending an extended day and they need lunch, it will be provided if they qualify. So just FYI, we're working on that and making sure that our kids are fed. Childcare providers do provide snack and those things that you're used to during a before and after childcare portion of the days.
Okay. Looking some more. Will there be busing? So here's a question about transportation. Will there be busing?
No, there will not be busing available for childcare sites.
Okay. The question, one of the questions is, I'm not sure if this was asked, but will the virtual digital applications and programs be accessible on equipment other than Chromebooks, like an iPad, iPhone, PCs, laptops, and other equipment?
I can take this question. So it's really difficult for our infrastructure supervisor to figure out how to support the Wi-Fi necessary for some of the devices that come in. For example, the service providers take attendance using different devices other than Chromebooks. But we support Chromebooks because our students will show up with Chromebooks. So our IT team would need to know what kinds of devices are being used because it'll overload the system. And that's something that we've been asking our service providers to see what kinds of devices are you going to connect to. And if possible, don't connect random devices to our Wi-Fi in our buildings because that really takes away from the experience of students who are trying to get on using our Chromebooks. So we will not allow random iPads and things like that. For kids to access asynchronous or synchronous learning. Asynchronous, I'm just going to go over the definitions one more time because it's not, those are not terms that we have traditionally used in education, but synchronous is like what we're doing now. We're all in synchronous mode, which is we're all live and we're all listening. And if you're watching me live right now, you are engaging in synchronous community forum. But if you didn't have time to watch this and you decided, I'm going to watch this tomorrow, I know it's being recorded, that would be considered asynchronous. You're experiencing the same thing, like you're listening to me and you're getting all the Q&As answered and things like that, but you're not doing it live. You're doing it after the fact. So that could, and you're doing it on your own time, anytime you had. So that would fall into the definition of asynchronous. So for synchronous and asynchronous learning, we would highly encourage that we have devices that our IT department supports and that we can handle, because there's some intricacies that they have to prepare in advance to make sure that all of our kids can access with success.
And as a follow-up to that, there's a question on the in the question box about, will students be provided with resources like Chromebooks? The answer to that is yes. Students will be issued, will have the opportunity to have a Chromebook, a district Chromebook. So all students preschool through 12th grade plus will be issued a Chromebook that they can use. And if they are going to childcare, that's the device that we would expect them to bring with them to access their instruction, their remote instruction. And another question is around preschool childcare. So the providers that we are currently working with have been offered the opportunity to design with us a preschool childcare. Preschool childcare is very different than school-age childcare. Their licensing requirements are different. And for many of our preschool children who are in community childcares, it would be very difficult for their providers to serve only some students in with remote instruction, when the majority of their children might not have remote, or might not be eligible for remote instruction. So So what we are trying to work through right now is how do we open up maybe an entirely different site that would serve students in preschool in a district preschool program during the day for remote instruction. So we're working on that, but we don't have an announcement of that yet because we haven't worked through all of the little, there's a lot of different challenges to supporting 3 and 4-year-olds in a remote learning environment. So that is still kind of to be determined. So here's a question that's come up a few times. Children who are in other childcare providers receiving their childcare through other providers. Is there a way that they can access the instruction on the Chromebooks? Do they still have the opportunity to access through Chromebooks?
So if I'm understanding that question correctly, let's say, and correct me if I'm wrong, let's say a family decides to choose another provider in the city of Edmonds that are not using our facilities. Just to be clear, in Edmonds School District, we don't do childcare. Childcare is very different from school. And so we don't want to conflate the two because I know that there might be confusion. Why are you opening childcare? And it's for, and you're paying, we have to pay for it, and school's free and all of that. It's two separate. We can't conflate two different things. We don't do childcare. What we do is support by letting our childcare providers use our facilities because they're available. And we want to have that partnership. If we can make it easier for them to service our families well, we want to support. So going back to the question, so if you are choosing to use the services of not one of these 4, but another childcare provider, you would have to talk to that childcare provider to figure out how your student with one of our district Chromebooks, because they're enrolled in Edmonds School District, could get the support during the day. But what I'm hearing from many childcare providers is they're being responsive to the situation that we're all in, and they're very interested in changing their programming so that there's time for kids to log into the Zoom, to have that face-to-face time with their classmates and their teacher, and then also do the homework help, which is the asynchronous learning possibly, and have time for that at different parts of the day. One of the things that I'm very happy that we did, as many districts did, was we sent out a draft schedule to let not only our families, but to let our childcare providers kind of get a feel for what the day could look like. It's only draft, it's not set in stone, but we felt like it was, we really had to provide something for our childcare providers and our families to give them an idea of what this is all about, because this is all new. We've never done this before. The full remote learning has to be better than what we provided in the spring, because we want to be better at what we're supporting all of you with. So because we have those schedules and our student learning and student services team, they were very mindful of the fact that childcare providers would have to support our families with this kind of learning, the remote learning. So we have set times that are still in draft, but it gives us a better picture of what's to come so we can plan accordingly. All of our providers will be on call on the 31st to answer the specific program questions. I know the next round of questions will be, we got the pricing, okay, we got the locations. Now, what's the day going to look like? They're all different providers and they have different specialties that they really foster when they receive kids. So we want to honor that and honor their autonomy to do what they do well. In addition to that, they're going to have to support the remote learning because of the needs of our families. And they're going to be sharing their programs with you on the 31st. So you can kind of get like the lay of the land, like before signing up, like what's the morning hours going to look like? What's mealtime going to look like? There's a lot of questions about, well, I don't qualify for free and reduced. Can I buy lunch? Can I make sure that my kid gets some hot lunch? That's also a possibility that we're all working out through our providers as well. So more to come on that. So the 31st is going to be a very important community forum. So we're going to get a lot of details about what the day looks like, hopefully, so that you get to pick and choose the sites that best fit your needs.
Another question is about kindergarten. So does the childcare being provided apply to kindergartners? The answer to that question is yes. All of our providers provide childcare to kindergarten through 6th grade students. That's our elementary grade levels. And so they all provide K through 6 childcare. Another question is around Chromebooks. When are Chromebooks going to be provided? So the short answer to that is each building will have a schedule for Chromebook distribution and assignment. So you'll be getting more information about that as that schedule becomes more finalized in the next couple of days. So there isn't just one set day, there's multiple days, and we'll share that information too with our community. Let's see. Will other providers, so people who are providers who are not delivering services in our buildings, be provided with some sort of IT assistance, and helping get their Chromebooks connected to their network, that kind of thing? Can someone answer that?
I could answer that. So will other providers be provided some sort of IT assistance? If the student is an Edmond School District student, we will provide support for the family to ensure that they are connecting to Wi-Fi, either at their home or at their childcare site. It's easier for us to support when they're in our own buildings because we're upgrading some of the Wi-Fi. These 4 buildings will be ready to handle multiple kids logging in and accessing the Wi-Fi all at the same time because of the synchronous learning. If they're in a different childcare setting, that is not really our call because it's really their building and their Wi-Fi system that we really can't upgrade or meddle with. So if it's a Wi-Fi issue at a specific childcare location, we wouldn't be able to support. But if you have issues connecting to your home Wi-Fi, for example, we want to do as much as we can to ensure that your child can do homework and submit assignments and all of that, watch videos of the teacher teaching, things like that. And we'll work closely with you. Just please reach out to your school principal. I think that would be the first line. Reach out to the school principal, share with him or her about your frustrations about accessing Wi-Fi in your home, the Chromebook's not working, something's happening, and then they'll help you connect to our IT team. But we don't support Wi-Fi stability or upgrades in other childcare sites. We wouldn't do that for some of our own partners like the Y. It's because they're renting our space.
And there also will be a tech-focused community forum coming up on September 1st. So some of your technology questions or some of the information that you're seeking will be able to be addressed at that technology forum. That's again on September 1st. There's several questions in here about how childcare workers will be assigned to work with different grades. Again, each childcare provider, they hire their employees, and they set the schedule for their employees within their day. So attending or participating in the August 31st forum coming up would be a great way to just check in with some of the providers and ask some of those different questions about, how are they going to organize different groups of kids to manage various grades and those are great questions to remember on August 31st when we have our providers here. There's a question here. It's a great question, and I want to direct this to Mara, our health services program manager. Why is it safe to provide childcare but not to have regular in-person classes? Oh, is Mara not with us? Okay, we'll hang on to that one. When Mara is able to join us again, or when she's able to be back online, we will direct that to her. All right. A question here is about sending the website for the income guidelines for financial aid with the providers. There's actually a federal website where those things are located, but the best way is to chat with your provider, and they all have created documents that that they can share with you that show how they use their income and family size guidelines for creating discounts for our families. So please, if you could check in with each provider, their scale might be a little different. For instance, the YMCA, they have increments of 10%. So they have a chart that is spread out over and drops the discount by 10%. Other providers have a discount system that's a 50% and a 25% discount. And they're based upon the same income guidelines, but they're organized a little differently. So that would be a great question to ask your provider as you're getting ready to register, or to come back on the 31st and ask that question directly. Let's see. I'm looking here. Okay, Mara, or Dr. Young, can you answer the question about schedules?
Sure. One of the questions says, when will the providers receive the schedule so they understand how to ensure students are properly supported? Thank you so much for this question. Here I am. Thank you so much for the question, because that's what we really want to provide our childcare providers, so they have ample time to be able to do so. But we are unable to give them a schedule right now because of negotiations between our district and the teacher union. This is why we sent out a draft version so families and childcare providers could get an idea of what it could be like, because we're all kind of in the dark. They really did not have much direction at all on how to prepare their staff, because this is a very new way of supporting the families and students that they historically served. So from what I heard, the draft schedules were incredibly helpful to them in planning and having conversations with people on their staff right now in anticipation for the final, whatever that may be. But we're unsure right now because of negotiations what the schedule is going to be. But I know that I've heard that they're very close, and our providers are eagerly waiting for that schedule so they can really start planning the day, hour by hour, minute by minute. They're all over it right now, and that's what they're really, really wanting. And so they're ready to go to make sure that they're going to support our kiddos well. I just want to add that all of our providers have been so amazing in wanting to provide that kind of support for remote learning. They do not want their families to go home at 5 p.m., like Darcy said, to make sure that the assignment was turned in on time, or, that their child read for a certain number of minutes because that was the assignment for maybe a third grader. They really want to cover all those bases, and they want to do it well as much as they possibly can. So they're creating their schedules based on our tentative draft schedule, knowing that it could drastically change perhaps, but they're getting a better sense of what it could be. So they're better equipped to do this well.
So, Mara, are you on the line with us?
Yes, I am. I'm alive again. Yay.
Yay.
Sorry, everybody. I've been having some technological difficulties here. But I do want to answer two of my questions. I know the first one I answered a little haphazard because I wasn't sure if my connection was going to last. But the first one was in regards to ratios. In the childcare settings, they have very strict ratios, and the ratios are typically 10 per classroom, 1 instructor to 9 students typically. And that is typically what we have seen in our childcare settings that we have supported here at the health district, at the school district. Now, the second question is, why are childcare facilities ready and able to be open, whereas we're seeing school districts are having a little bit more stringent criteria in regards to opening? Now, there is essentially a different environment when you're looking at childcare versus school facilities. Typically, childcare's organizations and facilities are a lot smaller in regards to their size and the amount of ratio of students that they will have in a building. So public health has indicated that, number one, childcare is essential for parents who cannot keep students at home over this time. And secondly, because of the smaller totality of the number of children that will be in a building in comparison to a larger school facility, this will decrease the community transmission ratios and by limiting those childcare sizes. So that's one of the biggest rationales why childcare centers are capable of opening at this point, as opposed to school districts.
There's a question to Amara about if a location has a COVID suspected case, will there be backup plans to move students to other locations?
You know what? Helen and I had actually this discussion yesterday. Part of it will be dependent on, number one, the staff that have been involved in the original outbreak. If they will need to be quarantined for 14 days. And so if a facility or an organization has the ability to open up a second site with different staff that were not originally involved with the first outbreak, then yes, we can do that. But all students and staff in association with the first outbreak will have to quarantine for 14 days.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that question. As Amara, before you leave, the question about masks, are masks required in childcare?
Yes, masks are required in childcare with the exception of children 2 and under, but from my understanding, we are not having any preschool sites.
We certainly aren't having any younger than 2 or 2 or younger. So let's see. I'm looking through the questions. Haley, did you see anything that you wanted to answer, that you wanted to address?
I think we hit on all the ones that were specific to supporting students with disabilities in the childcare facility. And then just a few others were around tech questions that were followed up. So those have also been answered.
Okay, great. So Helen, would you like to wrap up, please?
Sure. I know that there's a lot more questions that we need to get answers for you, and we're gonna get you the answers, and they're all logged here. So thank you for all the questions that are coming in right now. And if you have further inquiries regarding childcare and the 4 locations and the programming and whatever questions you may have, um, please send them to Shelley Roll. Her email's right here, and she will make sure that district staff will get those emails and respond to you as quickly as we can. So please email Shelley with further inquiries, and the questions that we have here tonight will definitely get answers for you. Sooner than August 31st. If we see trends, we're gonna let you know. And I just want to close tonight by saying thank you to all of the people who are watching tonight. I know this is this is a nerve-wracking thing, you know, and some of you are essential workers and you need childcare and you have lots of questions about what the day is going to look like because your child could possibly spend the whole day on any given day at childcare. So this is why we're partnering with our local service providers to make sure that we care for our kids in childcare, regardless of remote or face-to-face or hybrid. So my last words to all of you and to all of us is that we are better together, and this is why we're partnering. We're partnering because we want to help and support you. Yes, we don't do childcare. Yes, we're just making sure that the facilities part is being provided, but we're looking further into how we can partner so that our kids are not frustrated during childcare when they have to do the remote learning. And so please let us know what your concerns are and let us know if you have any questions. And I commend all of you for staying strong and asking great questions to make sure our children are safe, because safety is foremost to Edmond School District right now. We want all of our kids super safe, whether we're in hybrid, full, or during childcare. So thank you for your time, and I hope all of you I hope you get lots of rest before our next community meeting, which will be August 31st, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And we will have our 4 childcare providers answer all of your questions at that time. Thank you. Good night, everybody.